What is up, everybody? My name is LEG and welcome back to another Dragon Quest XI video. And as you can see, I want to do Dragon Quest XI. I want to get on this. I'm trying my best. I'm not really sure anything about Dragon Quest, but you know, bear with me, because if you're new to Dragon Quest, I'm also new to Dragon Quest, and this game looks interesting. And if there's any Dragon Quest I'm going to be playing before this game even comes out this year, it's probably going to be Dragon Quest VIII or Dragon Quest Builders or Dragon Quest Heroes, but probably, if anything, Dragon Quest VIII, since that's the one on the 3DS. It's the cheapest option, and it's one in the actual franchise, not like a side weird thing like fucking Dragon Quest Heroes and Builders. But anyways, let's just get right to the video, and the topic of this video is important to me and important to you as well: whether Dragon Quest XI is getting localized. And that is kind of a big deal. For those of you that don't know what localized mean, it's whenever a game comes out in Japan and is going to be released in the West, like North America and Europe and stuff. It has not been announced yet to be localized, and that's kind of a big deal when it comes to Dragon Quest, because I could be wrong about this, but I'm almost 99.99997% sure that Dragon Quest games, all of them, have been released in the West. Yeah, nope, that is wrong. That is wrong information. My name is Future Alley, and I am here to correct present Alley so he doesn't fuck up in the video and people don't rash him. Okay, so Future Alley is going to say it right now: Dragon Quest X is a game that did not get localized, since it was the Dragon Quest game in the series that had mainly focused online gameplay and online MMORPG type of thing. They did not want to make servers in the West, I assume, and that is such a hassle when it comes to MMORPGs. So if people don't want it in the West, they're not going to make it for the West, and that's exactly what happened. They did not make Dragon Quest X for the West, and the same goes with Dragon Quest Heroes 2. That's kind of like a Muso / Warrior style game, if you know what that is, except with Dragon Quest shit, and people did not like the first one, which was localized in the West, and Dragon Quest Heroes 2, as a repercussion of that, did not get localized in the West last year. So that is all I had to say. Just trying to correct myself. Future Alley out. Continue the news. Hearing that Dragon Quest XI is not announced for the West already is a little bit concerning, but a post on Gematsu.com says that there is an article interview of the executive producer behind the Dragon Quest series in Edge magazine, and that interview kind of stated what's the deal and why it has not been localized to the West yet, and hinting that it will most likely be localized to the West, but also telling us why it hasn't yet. So I'm going to kind of skim through this article. Maybe low-key, I'm honestly about to read the whole fucking thing, because you know me, I don't like skimming. I like to analyze the shits. So according to Yu Miyaka, which is the guy's name, I'm going to call him Yu from now on just so I don't butcher it 27 times and make you guys uncomfortable. The source of nostalgia is different between the franchises. When he's saying between the franchises, he's referring to Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. The source of nostalgia is different between the franchises in Japan and in the West. Miyake, I'm just going to say Yu said that Square Enix should have originally put effort into the localization of Dragon Quest, and that its cartoon-like aesthetic may not immediately appeal to Western gamers. That is understandable, and when he says that, I immediately, like, pew, it immediately shoots into my mind Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts has that exact same cartoon aesthetic. It has fucking Disney characters. It has even more of a cartoon aesthetic. I feel like I can't really argue that point, though, being that Kingdom Hearts probably has a stronger fan base than Dragon Quest, and maybe that is why he's so scared about that. He does explain further on about this topic, though, so I'll input my opinion later. It's a topic we've been thinking about a lot internally. The question of why Final Fantasy is so much more popular than Dragon Quest in the West. One conclusion that we've reached is that it's a question of historical timing. When the Famicom, which I assume is some type of Comic-Con, came out, Dragon Quest was the key game everyone was playing. Oh, no, excuse me, the Famicom is a console. When the Famicom came out, Dragon Quest was the key game everyone was playing. But when the PlayStation came out, Final Fantasy VII was the game that everyone was playing. So the source of nostalgia is different for both groups. In Japan, it's Dragon Quest, while overseas, it's Final Fantasy. The truth is that if we'd put a lot of effort into localization Dragon Quest at the time, we probably wouldn't be facing this issue today. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but we kind of messed up in that regard. So basically what he's saying is that localization for Dragon Quest did not really go so well, and the advertising for the Western versions didn't really go off so well as Final Fantasy, or I think he's just using Final Fantasy as an example. I don't think he's saying Final Fantasy is like fucking beating down Dragon Quest, but you know, Square Enix is like, you know, they kind of fucked up in that regard, and that's basically what he's saying. So let's just keep on reading here to see if we can get more information. You continued, one thing that does stand out in Japan, the target audience for Dragon Quest is vast. It ranges from primary school students to people in their 50s. Now, Akira Toriyama's art style is cartoonish, and in Japan, that doesn't alienate anyone. It's not seen as childish. But outside of Japan, I think there's often a stigma attached to that kind of aesthetic. Now, when an adult tries the game, they will discover that the subject matter is actually quite mature. Nevertheless, players are still left with the disconnect between how the game looks and how it plays. That's a tension that just doesn't exist in Japan. What we're seeing now is the age of people who are playing is rising. Interest is also increasing. We're trying to put a lot more effort into promoting overseas the spin-off titles we've been working on, Dragon Quest Builders and Dragon Quest Heroes, in order to soften up the ground for Dragon Quest XI. Okay, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. And I feel like they're succeeding in that front, because I keep seeing Dragon Quest Builders all over the place. I keep seeing Dragon Quest Heroes all over the place. Dragon Quest Heroes 2 is in the process of being made. I'm not 100% sure if that's being localized, but it probably is. And for Dragon Quest XI to be coming out right after those, it's perfect, because I honestly don't think I ever heard of Dragon Quest until Dragon Quest Heroes. So, you know, I've been exposed. You guys have succeeded. Miyake, I don't think this guy understands that people over here who respect, like, he used Akira Toriyama as an example for having cartoonish art style, and that Japan isn't really affected by that cartoonish art style, being that Akira Toriyama uses it and his story is pretty gruesome and pretty adult themed for the most part. But when he's saying over the West, people over here like Dragon Ball 2. If anyone's going to buy Dragon Quest, it's going to be like people that understand Japan's culture and people that understand how games work in that way. And I think what he is saying is that for people that aren't really into stuff like that, for people that aren't really into anime and aren't really into Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts and don't understand that cartoonish aspect to be like serious topic and a serious way of conveying things in Japan, for those that people who do not understand that, they will not go into GameStop and look at Dragon Quest XI and be like, yo, I want to pick that shit up. No, they're gonna look at that shit and be like, yo, ew, rated E for everyone, BS. Like, no, that's what they're probably going to do. And I think that's what the person behind Dragon Quest series is trying to say. So let's keep reading on. I'm sorry for rambling. Edge also brought up how the design of Final Fantasy often changes and must deal with the risk of alienating fans, whereas Dragon Quest must maintain a traditional experience while ensuring that players don't grow tired of the formula. That's kind of the same thing with Pokemon. So Dragon Quest is experiencing basically what every other Japanese game when it comes to localization comes through. It's just that Dragon Quest kind of failed when it came to promoting itself. Square Enix was more focusing on Final Fantasy, he's basically saying, and he's saying that Dragon Quest didn't really get much focus. So that's kind of his main point. For those people that are Dragon Quest fans and are like, why aren't we getting Dragon Quest XI? This is what he's saying. He's saying that Dragon Quest XI had to deal with the same problems that every other anime gaming series has to deal with. But Dragon Quest XI kind of fucked up, while Final Fantasy didn't, and while Pokemon didn't. Dragon Quest kind of fucked up when it came to promoting itself in the Western audience. So let's keep reading this last portion of the article. Instead of changing the game itself, we focus on changing the way it's played in the world, Miyake said in regards to the Dragon Quest series. For example, with Dragon Quest IX, we made a handheld game because that's how people were playing games predominantly at the time. Dragon Quest X, we made it into an online game, so that's how we try to keep the series fresh. In fact, we run the risk of alienating fans when we move from pixel art to 3D, with the move to Dragon Quest VIII. And when we made the 10th game, a lot of players complained saying that Dragon Quest should never be an online game. But it turns out that in each of these cases, when you start playing the game, you find it still has the same feel. It's still quintessentially Dragon Quest. So basically what he's saying is that he's sticking to the formula of the games. He's doing the Pokemon thing. He's doing the Pokemon thing where you have to have the same formula, but at the same time make it more enjoyable each game and each millennia. And being able to introduce new fans as you're doing that, that is very hard. And I think what he's trying to say is that they're succeeding in that front, but they're failing in the promoting front. And they're not really sure, since they're failing in the promoting front, they want to risk the fact of localizing the game, being that the promoting front might risk the game getting shit sales in the West. But I personally think that what they tried to do by making Dragon Quest Builders and Dragon Quest Heroes and promoting that in the West, putting some Dragon Quest names out there, already is enough recognition for someone like me, someone who is an anime gaming fan and someone who has never heard of Dragon Quest except for those 2 games, to get this, Dragon Quest XI in Search of Departed Time. That is why Dragon Quest XI in Search of Departed Time has not been localized yet. Based on that article, I think you can understand that there is a high possibility that it will get localized. You know, it's probably going to get localized, but it has not yet. So my theory, my hypothesis is that the game will get localized. I think it will. I think it will. They're scared, and I understand they are, but it's a Dragon Quest game. They've never really told themselves, okay, we're not localizing a Dragon Quest game before, at least not to my knowledge. Tell me in the comments down below if they have, and if you're a Dragon Quest fan and I am incorrect, but to my knowledge they haven't. So please tell me in the comments down below what you think of Dragon Quest XI in Search of Departed Time, coming out on the PlayStation 4 and 3DS in Japan in 2017, and the Switch, excuse me, that game's also coming out on the Switch. You can get Dragon Quest VIII on the 3DS in North America and Europe on January 20th, and I think I am, because I am very excited for Dragon Quest, and I hope you guys are as well. If you enjoyed the video, please click that like button below, and please click that subscribe button for more Dragon Quest XI and more anime games alike. My name is LEG. I am out. Deuces, fellow strugglers.